Dr. Ji-Ho Kim stared at his computer screen in the quiet lab at Seoul International Space Research Center and wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. The numbers on the display showed something that should not exist. For 3 weeks, he had been running the same tests on Earth's quantum communication systems, and every time the results were the same. There were signals hidden inside the normal data flow like whispers in a crowded room. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the data again. The signals were not random noise or equipment problems. They had patterns and structure like a language he could not read. The signals moved through every quantum communication line on Earth, including the internet satellites and even the new deep space transmitters. Someone or something was watching everything humans sent through their networks. Ji-Ho picked up his phone to call his colleague, but then stopped. If these signals were real, and if they were monitoring all communications, then whoever was doing this would know about his discovery the moment he made a call. He needed to be very careful about what he did next. Meanwhile, far above Earth in the cold darkness of space, Captain So-Young Park stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Aegis and watched the stars. Her crew had been on patrol near Jupiter when their long-range sensors picked up something unusual. There was a ship out there that did not belong to any Earth nation or corporation. Captain, the unknown vessel is still maintaining distance at exactly 50,000 kilometers, reported her communications officer Taemin Lee. It has been following our course changes for the past 2 hours, but it has made no attempt to communicate or approach closer. So-Young studied the tactical display. The alien ship was sleek and silver with no visible weapons or engines, yet it moved through space with impossible grace. Every time the Aegis changed direction, the strange vessel matched their movements, perfectly as if it were connected to them by invisible strings. "Any response to our communication attempts, Taemin?" she asked. "Nothing, Captain. We have tried every frequency and protocol in our database. The ship receives our transmissions, but sends nothing back. It just watches and follows." So-Young felt a chill run down her spine. Earth had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, but she had never expected first contact to feel so unsettling. The alien ship was not aggressive, but it was not friendly either. It studied them like scientists studying insects in a laboratory. Back on Earth, Ji-Ho had spent the entire night analyzing the hidden signals. He discovered that they were not just monitoring human communications, but were also sending tiny pieces of data back into the network. The signals were so small and perfectly disguised that no human detection system had ever noticed them before. The more he studied the signals, the more frightened he became. They were everywhere in every piece of technology that used quantum effects. The signals had been there for years, maybe decades. Someone had been watching humanity for a very long time, and humans had never known. Ji-Ho decided he needed help, but he could not use any electronic communication. He would have to meet his contacts in person and hope that whoever was watching had not yet realized what he had discovered. He grabbed his coat and left the lab, making sure to shut down all his equipment first. In space, the Aegis continued its strange dance with the alien vessel. So-Young had ordered her crew to run silent protocols, keeping all but the most essential systems offline. She hoped that would make it harder for the aliens to learn about human technology, but she suspected they already knew more than she wanted to think about. "Captain, I am detecting some kind of scanning beam from the alien ship," reported the sensor officer. "It is very subtle, but it appears to be analyzing our hull composition and internal structure." "Are they trying to find our weaknesses?" asked So-Young. "I do not think so, Captain. The scan pattern looks more like they are cataloging our capabilities. They seem more interested in what we can do than in how to hurt us." So-Young found that even more disturbing than if they had been targeting weapons, an enemy you could fight, but beings who studied you like specimens in a zoo were much more frightening. On Earth, Ambassador Hye-Jin Choi was having the worst day of her career. She had been called to an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council after reports came in about the alien ship near Jupiter. Now she sat in a room full of panicked politicians and military officers who all wanted her to somehow fix a situation that nobody understood. "We need to establish diplomatic contact immediately," said the Secretary General. "This could be the most important moment in human history." "With respect, sir, we do not even know if they want to talk to us." replied Hyejin. The ship near Jupiter has ignored all our communication attempts. We cannot force them into dialogue. If they choose to remain silent, then what do you suggest we do? Asked the Secretary General. We wait and we prepare. We need to understand what they want before we can decide how to respond. What none of them knew was that the aliens already understood humanity very well. For 800 years, the Galactic Consortium had been watching Earth through quantum communication lines that they had secretly integrated into human technology. They had observed every war, every discovery, and every cultural change that humans had experienced. The consortium was not interested in conquest or destruction. They had a much more subtle plan for humanity. Earth was designated as a controlled development zone, where humans would be allowed to advance to a specific level of technology and then would be guided into becoming a client species of the greater galactic community. It was a process they had perfected with dozens of other worlds. Let the developing species think they were making their own choices while carefully controlling their progress. When they reached the right level of advancement, the consortium would reveal itself and offer membership in galactic civilization. Most species were so grateful for the guidance and protection that they willingly gave up their independence. Jiho finally reached the safe house where he had arranged to meet Dr. Yoon-ji Yang, a xenobiologist who worked for Earth's Deep Space Monitoring program. He had chosen her because her work meant she would understand the implications of what he had found, and because she had security clearance high enough to reach the people who needed to know. What you are telling me sounds impossible, said Yoonji, after Jiho explained his discovery. If aliens have been monitoring our communications for years, then they would know everything about us. Our military capabilities, our political systems, our scientific research, everything. That is exactly what I am afraid of, replied Jiho. But there is more. The signals are not just watching, they are also sending data back into our systems. I think they might be influencing our technology development. Yoonji stared at him in shock. You mean they have been guiding our progress? I think so. Every major breakthrough in quantum computing, fusion power, and space technology happened at times when the signal activity increased dramatically. It is as if someone was giving us hints about what to discover next. The terrible truth was beginning to emerge. Humanity had not been alone in the universe for a very long time, but they had also not been free. They were like children being raised by parents they could not see following a path that had been chosen for them by beings they did not know existed. In space, the alien ship finally made its move. It transmitted a single brief message to the Aegis before disappearing in a flash of light that no human technology could explain. The message was simple and terrifying. Development assessment complete. Threshold protocols initiated. Integration. Timeline: 6 months. So Young stared at the translation on her screen and felt the blood drain from her face. Whatever the aliens had been looking for, they had apparently found it, and now something called integration was going to happen in 6 months. Earth had always dreamed of joining a galactic community, but now it seemed that the invitation might not be optional. Admiral Dongwook Shin read the classified report for the 3rd time and still could not believe what he was seeing. The evidence that Dr. Jiho Kim had gathered showed that Earth's entire technological development had been manipulated by alien forces for centuries. Every major scientific breakthrough, from the invention of the transistor to the development of fusion power, had happened with subtle alien guidance. The report made him feel sick to his stomach. Humanity had always been proud of their scientific achievements, but now it seemed that they had been like children playing with toys that adults had left for them to find. The aliens had been controlling human progress all along, making sure that Earth developed along the exact path they wanted. Sir, we have confirmed similar signal patterns in technology from as far back as the 1950s, reported his intelligence officer. The monitoring system has been growing more sophisticated as our technology advanced, but the basic structure has been there for decades. Dongwook stood up from his desk and walked to the window that looked out over the Unified Defense Command headquarters. Thousands of people worked in the buildings below, all of them dedicated to protecting Earth from threats they could see. But the real threat had been invisible, hiding inside the very technology they used every day. Have we identified who is doing this? He asked. Dr. Yang has been working with a contact who claims to be from something called the Galactic Consortium. The entity says it is willing to provide information but only through secure quantum channels that are isolated from their monitoring network. Dr. Yunji Yang sat in her laboratory surrounded by equipment that had been hastily assembled to create a communication system that the aliens could not monitor. It had taken her team weeks to build a quantum transmitter that operated on completely different principles from anything humans had used before. When the first message came through, she almost dropped her coffee cup. The voice that spoke through, the static was clearly not human, but it spoke perfect Korean with only a slight accent that sounded almost musical. Dr. Yang, I am grateful that you have found a way to speak privately. My name would be difficult for you to pronounce, so you may call me Researcher Vex. I work for the Galactic Consortium, but I disagree with their policies regarding your species. What is the Galactic Consortium, and what do they want with Earth? Asked Yunji. The Consortium is a collection of advanced civilizations that maintains order and stability throughout this region of the galaxy. They believe that young species like humanity need guidance to develop properly. Earth has been designated as a controlled development zone for the past 800 years. Yunji felt her blood turn cold. 800 years. You have been watching us since medieval times? Yes. The consortium has been carefully managing your technological and social development to ensure that when you reach sufficient advancement, you will be ready to join galactic civilization as a client species. You will serve various functions within consortium society, and in exchange you will receive protection and access to advanced technology. What if we do not want to be a client species? Asked Yunji. There was a long pause before Vex responded. Species that refuse integration are classified as rogue civilizations. They are cut off from galactic trade and communication. Most do not survive the isolation. Some face more direct intervention if they are deemed dangerous to galactic stability. The conversation continued for hours as Vex explained the true situation that Earth faced. The Galactic Consortium controlled hundreds of star systems and dozens of client species. Each client civilization served specific roles in consortium society. Some provided labor, others served as soldiers, and a few were kept as cultural preserves for the entertainment of more advanced species. Humanity had been developed specifically to serve as explorers and pioneers. The consortium wanted humans to colonize dangerous frontier worlds and explore regions of space that were too risky for more valuable species. It was why human psychology had been carefully shaped to value independence and risk-taking, even while their technology was being controlled. The process is usually quite smooth, explained Vex. When a species reaches the threshold level of development, consortium representatives make formal contact. They explain the benefits of membership, and most species are eager to join. The alternative of remaining isolated and unprotected seems too frightening to consider. But you think this is wrong, said Yunji. I believe that every species has the right to choose their own path, even if that choice leads to difficulty or failure. The consortium sees this as naive and dangerous thinking. They believe that young species cannot be trusted to make good decisions for themselves. Lieutenant Wu Jinhan flew his reconnaissance fighter through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, searching for evidence of alien activity. Intelligence reports suggested that there might be monitoring stations hidden among the rocks where they could observe Earth without being detected. His sensors picked up anomalous readings from an asteroid that looked perfectly normal, but reflected radar signals in patterns that suggested it was not made of ordinary rock. When he moved closer for a better look, the asteroid suddenly activated defensive systems that his fighter barely managed to avoid. Command, this is Recon 7. I have found something big out here, he transmitted on the secure channel. There is definitely an alien installation in the asteroid belt, and it does not want visitors. Back at command, Dongwook studied the sensor readings that Wu Jin had transmitted. The alien installation was sophisticated enough to remain hidden from Earth's best detection systems, but it was also powerful enough to defend itself against military spacecraft. How many more installations were out there that humans had never detected? Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Yang, reported his communications officer. Dongwook took the call and listened as Yunji explained what she had learned from her alien contact. The news was worse than he had feared. Earth was not just being monitored, but was being prepared for a future that humans had never chosen for themselves. The entity called VEX says that Earth will receive formal contact from consortium representatives within 6 months, reported Yunji. They will offer humanity membership in galactic civilization, but the terms will not be negotiable. We either accept client status or face isolation and possible military action. What about our colony ships? Asked Dong-wook. We have sent several expeditions to nearby star systems over the past few decades. There was silence on the channel before Yunji responded. According to VEX, those ships were intercepted by consortium forces. The colonists were relocated to existing client worlds where they now serve as workers and soldiers. The consortium wanted to prevent humans from establishing independent colonies before the integration process was complete. Dong-wook felt rage building in his chest. Thousands of brave colonists had volunteered for those missions, believing they were expanding human civilization. Instead, they had been captured and enslaved by aliens who thought they knew what was best for humanity. Doctor, does your contact have any suggestions for how we might resist this integration? He asked. VEX says that no species has ever successfully refused consortium membership once they reached threshold development level. The monitoring and control systems are too sophisticated to overcome, but he also says that he has never encountered a species quite like humanity before. What makes us different? He says that most species value security and stability above all else. When they learn about the dangers of the galaxy and the protection that the consortium offers, they are usually grateful to accept client status. But humans seem to value freedom and independence even when those choices are dangerous. The conversation was interrupted when alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Sensor stations around the world were detecting massive objects entering the solar system. The alien ships were not trying to hide themselves anymore. Captain So-Young Park received orders to take the Aegis and a small fleet of Earth's most advanced ships to investigate the alien arrivals. Her crew worked frantically to prepare for what might be humanity's last chance to face their would-be masters as free beings. As the Aegis accelerated toward the outer system, So-Young wondered if humans would have the courage to refuse the aliens' offer when it came. The consortium had spent centuries preparing for this moment. They knew everything about human psychology and technology. They had probably planned for every possible response that humans might make. But there was one thing that worried her even more than the aliens' superior knowledge and technology. What if they were right? What if humanity really was too young and dangerous to be trusted with true independence? What if the galaxy really would be safer with humans serving as client species rather than free civilizations? She pushed those thoughts aside and focused on her duty. In a few hours, she would come face to face with representatives of the Galactic Consortium. Whatever they offered and whatever they threatened humanity would have to make the most important choice in their history. The puppet strings that had guided human development for 8 centuries were about to become visible. The only question was whether humans would have the strength and courage to cut themselves free, even if it meant facing the unknown dangers of the galaxy alone. Tech specialist Bora Kang worked 18 hours a day in the underground facility beneath the mountains of South Korea. Her team had been given an impossible task: create a communication and computer system that could operate completely free from alien monitoring. Every piece of technology that humans used was compromised, but somehow they had to build something new from scratch. The key is quantum isolation, she explained to Dr. Sang Ho-jeon as they reviewed the latest test results. We cannot use any components or principles that the aliens have influenced. We have to go back to basic physics and build everything from the ground up, using completely different approaches. Sang-ho nodded as he studied the complex diagrams covering the walls of their laboratory. The theoretical framework is sound, but the engineering challenges are enormous. We are essentially trying to reinvent all of human technology in a matter of months. We do not have a choice, replied Bora. If we cannot break free from their monitoring network, then we will never be able to resist their control. They will always know what we are planning before we can act. Above ground, the world continued to function normally, but beneath the surface, a desperate race was taking place. Scientists and engineers from dozens of nations worked in secret facilities trying to develop technologies that could give humanity a fighting chance against the Galactic Consortium. Commander Kyung-Soo Lim led a stealth mission to investigate the alien monitoring stations that Lieutenant Woo Jin-han had discovered in the asteroid belt. His team used modified ships with experimental cloaking systems that they hoped would hide them from alien sensors. What they found in the asteroids was worse than anyone had imagined. The monitoring stations were not just passive observers, but active control centers that had been manipulating Earth's development for centuries. The aliens had been controlling weather patterns, economic markets, and even social movements to keep humanity on their desired path. Command, we have accessed. The alien data systems reported Kyung-Soo from his position inside one of the monitoring stations. The scope of their manipulation is staggering. They have been influencing everything from climate patterns to stock market fluctuations. Human history has been shaped by their interventions for hundreds of years. The data they recovered showed that the consortium had prevented several potential disasters that might have destroyed human civilization, but they had also stopped developments that might have led to true independence. Wars had been ended or started based on their calculations. Scientific discoveries had been delayed or accelerated depending on their timeline for human development. Most disturbing of all was evidence that several major religions and political movements had been influenced by subtle alien manipulation. The aliens had been steering human culture and society just as carefully as they had controlled technology and science. Back on Earth, Ambassador Hye-jin Choi prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. The Galactic Consortium had announced that they would send a formal delegation to establish official relations with humanity. The ceremony would take place in exactly 2 weeks, and attendance would not be optional. They are calling it an invitation to join galactic civilization, she explained to the emergency session of the United Earth Council. But according to our intelligence sources, it is actually a formalization of our subjugation. We will be expected to accept client status and integrate into their system of controlled species. The Secretary General looked tired and defeated. What options do we have? They control our technology. They know all our secrets and they have military superiority that we cannot match. How can we possibly resist? There might be a way, said Hye-jin quietly. But it would require making a choice that could destroy our civilization. We would have to voluntarily give up all the technology that they have influenced and start over from scratch. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Giving up their advanced technology would mean losing global communications space, travel, and most of the systems that kept modern civilization functioning. Billions of people could die if they could not maintain basic services like power generation and food distribution. The alternative is permanent slavery, continued Hye-jin. We would survive, but we would never again be free to choose our own destiny. Our children would grow up as servants to alien masters who think they know what is best for us. Meanwhile, Captain So-young Park discovered the fate of the missing human colonists when her ship encountered a consortium transport vessel in the outer system. The alien crew was surprisingly willing to allow her aboard when she requested permission to investigate. What she found in the transport's cargo bays made her physically sick. Hundreds of humans from the lost colony ships were being held in containment cells that looked more like prison than passenger accommodations. The colonists had been separated by age and skill and were being transported to various client worlds, where they would be assigned roles in consortium society. These people volunteered to explore new worlds and establish human settlements, she protested to the alien transport commander. They did not agree to become slaves. They are not slaves, replied the alien through a translation device. They are productive members of consortium civilization. They will receive food, shelter, and medical care in exchange for their service. Many species find this arrangement quite satisfactory. But they did not choose this life, said So-young. Young species rarely make good choices for themselves. The consortium provides guidance and structure that leads to better outcomes for everyone involved. Your colonists will be much safer and more productive under our care than they would have been struggling to survive on dangerous frontier worlds. So-young realized that the aliens genuinely believed they were helping humanity. In their view, humans were like children who needed adult supervision to avoid making dangerous mistakes. The fact that humans might prefer freedom over safety was something they could not understand. Dr. Sang-Ho Jian finally achieved a breakthrough in his theoretical work on FTL communication systems. By using principles that the aliens had never introduced to human science, he was able to create a transmission method that should be completely invisible to consortium monitoring systems. The key is using quantum entanglement in a way that creates closed loops, he explained to the assembled scientists. Instead of sending signals through space, we create paired particles that remain connected regardless of distance. The aliens cannot monitor the connection because it does not use any of the quantum frequencies they control. Bo-Ra Kang immediately saw the implications. If we can build a network of these entangled communication systems, we could coordinate global resistance without the aliens knowing. But we would have to physically destroy all existing communication infrastructure to prevent them from accessing our plans. The scientists looked at each other with a mixture of excitement and terror. They had found a way to break free from alien control, but using it would require cutting Earth off from all the technology that had been influenced by the consortium. It would be like performing surgery on themselves without anesthesia. Commander Kyung-Soo Lim transmitted his final report from the alien monitoring station before his team prepared to destroy it. Command, we have confirmed that the monitoring network extends throughout the entire solar system. There are hundreds of hidden stations and relay points. If we are going to cut ourselves free, we will have to hit all of them simultaneously. Admiral Dongwook Shin reviewed the plans that his teams had developed for what they were calling Operation Severance. It would require coordinated strikes against alien installations throughout the solar system, combined with the simultaneous shutdown of all compromised technology on Earth. The operation would have to be executed perfectly, because they would only get one chance. Sir, the consortium delegation has arrived, reported his aide. They are requesting permission to land at the United Nations headquarters in 3 days. Dongwook looked at the countdown timer on his wall. They had 72 hours to decide whether humanity would accept permanent subjugation or take the most dangerous gamble in their history. Either way, there would be no going back. The alien delegation brought gifts of advanced technology and promises of protection from the dangers of the galaxy. They spoke of the benefits of joining a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds and included dozens of intelligent species. They made client status sound like a privilege rather than a prison sentence. But underneath their friendly words was an unmistakable threat. Species that refused consortium membership faced isolation, economic collapse, and eventually extinction. The choice was simple: accept guidance and prosper, or choose independence and perish. As the final hours counted down toward the ceremony that would decide humanity's future, Bo-Ra Kang made the last connections in the quantum isolation network that would allow Earth to operate free from alien monitoring. Dr. Sang-Ho Jian completed the theoretical calculations that would guide their new FTL communication system. Commander Kyung-Soo Lim positioned his forces for simultaneous strikes against the monitoring stations. Everything was ready, but the decision still had to be made. Would humanity choose the safety of servitude or the uncertainty of freedom? In less than 72 hours, they would find out if the human spirit valued independence enough to risk everything for the sea. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in exactly 4 hours when Dr. Ji-Ho Kim entered the final activation codes into the quantum isolation system. Around the world, hundreds of teams waited for his signal to begin the most desperate gamble in human history. Operation Severance would either free humanity from alien control or destroy modern civilization in the attempt. All stations report ready status, announced Bo-Ra Kang from the underground command center. Quantum isolation networks are online and standing by. We are ready to cut all connections to compromised systems on your command. Ji-Ho looked at the countdown timer and felt the weight of the entire human race on his shoulders. In the past 4 hours, 3 more nations had withdrawn from the operation. Their leaders had decided that the risks were too great and that humanity would be safer accepting consortium client status. Dr. Kim, we are receiving a final transmission from the alien delegation, reported the communications officer. They are asking if Earth requires any additional time to prepare for the integration ceremony. Ji-Ho almost laughed at the irony. The aliens were being polite and patient while humanity prepared to sever 800 years of careful manipulation. They had no idea what was about to happen, because for the first time in centuries humans were planning something without alien knowledge or approval. Above ground in New York, the Galactic Consortium delegation waited in their magnificent spacecraft that hovered over the United Nations building. The alien representatives wore ceremonial robes and carried gifts of advanced technology that they planned to present to humanity's leaders. They expected the ceremony to be a celebration of Earth's acceptance into galactic civilization. Ambassador Hyojin Choi stood in the UN Assembly Hall surrounded by world leaders who still believed they were attending a diplomatic reception. Only a few dozen people in the entire world knew what was really about to happen. Everyone else would experience it as the most shocking moment in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin in 15 minutes, announced the secretary. General, this is truly a historic day for our species. Hyojin checked her watch and activated the hidden communicator that connected her to the Operation Command Center. This is Ambassador Choi. All diplomatic personnel are in position. We are ready to proceed. Commander Kyung-Soo Lim floated in space near the largest alien monitoring station in the asteroid belt. His assault teams had spent the past week infiltrating positions throughout the solar system. They had one chance to destroy the monitoring network before the aliens could react and call for reinforcements. All strike teams report final status, he commanded on the quantum-entangled communication system that the aliens could not monitor. Strike. Team Alpha in position at Luna Monitoring Complex, ready to execute. Strike Team Beta in position at Mars Relay Station, ready to execute. Strike Team Gamma in position at Jupiter Observation Post, ready to execute. One by one the reports came in from teams positioned at every alien installation in the solar system. The consortium had built an impressive network of hidden bases and relay stations, but they had never imagined that humanity would be capable of detecting and targeting all of them simultaneously. Back on Earth, Admiral Dong-Wook Shin watched the final preparations from his command bunker. Banks of computers displayed status reports from power stations, communication networks, and military bases around the world. In a few minutes, all of those systems would go dark, as humanity voluntarily destroyed the technological civilization they had built over centuries. Sir, the quantum isolation network is fully charged and ready for activation, reported his technical officer. All civilian authorities have been notified to begin emergency protocols. Emergency services are switching to backup systems that are not connected to the main networks. Dong-Wook nodded grimly. They had done everything possible to minimize the casualties, but cutting off global communications and shutting down most electronic systems would inevitably cause chaos. Planes would be grounded, ships would lose navigation, and hospitals would have to operate on emergency power. Thousands of people might die in the first few hours after the severance. The alternative is permanent slavery for our entire species, he reminded himself as he watched the countdown clock approach 0. Dr. Sang-Ho John monitored the quantum entanglement generators that would provide communication between isolated human facilities after the severance. The new system was untested and based on theoretical principles that had never been tried on such a large scale. If it failed, humanity would be left completely blind and deaf in a hostile galaxy. Dr. John, we are detecting increased activity from the alien monitoring stations, reported the sensor technician. It appears they are conducting final scans of our major population centers. They want to make sure they have complete data before the integration ceremony, replied Sang-Ho. They are probably documenting our military capabilities and political structures so they can plan our new role in their civilization. The irony was bitter. The aliens were gathering intelligence about humanity at the exact moment when humans were preparing to cut themselves free from alien observation. Soon the consortium would discover that their careful plans had been shattered by the species they thought they understood completely. Captain So-Young Park received her final orders from Admiral Shin as her ship waited in the outer solar system. After the severance began, her mission would be to intercept any consortium vessels that tried to reach Earth. Her small fleet would be outnumbered and outgunned, but they might be able to buy time for the planet to complete its transition to independence. Remember, Captain, once we begin, "There will be no going back," transmitted the Admiral. "Win or lose, humanity will never again be what it was before this day." "Understood, sir," replied So Young. "My crew is ready to do our part." She looked around the bridge at her officers and crew. Taemin Lee sat at his communication station ready to coordinate the fleet using the new quantum entanglement system. The other officers worked quietly at their posts, preparing for a battle they knew they probably could not win. "Captain IM, detecting movement from the consortium delegation ship," reported the sensor officer. "They are beginning their approach to the UN building for the ceremony." So Young checked her chronometer. "Signal all ships. Operation Severance begins in 60 seconds. Around the world, humans held their breath as the final countdown began. In hospitals, doctors prepared for emergency conditions. In power plants, engineers readied backup systems. In government bunkers, politicians waited to see if their civilization would survive the next few hours. The alien delegation landed on the roof of the United Nations building, completely unaware that they were walking into a trap. The consortium representatives emerged from their ship carrying gifts and ceremonial documents that would formalize humanity's acceptance of client status. 30 seconds to severance, announced Bo Rakang from the command center. Dr. Jiho Kim placed his hand on the activation control and took a deep breath. Everything that humanity had built over centuries of technological development was about to be voluntarily destroyed. Their space program, their global communications, their advanced manufacturing systems would all go dark simultaneously. 10 seconds to severance, called out Bo-Ra. 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Execute Operation Severance. Jiho pressed the activation button and felt the world change around him. Every computer screen in the command center went black. The lights failed and emergency power systems activated with a dull red glow. In the sudden silence, he could hear his own heartbeat and the nervous breathing of his colleagues. Across the planet, the effect was instantaneous and devastating. Satellite networks failed, internet connections died, cell phone towers went silent. Every piece of technology that used quantum effects or had been influenced by alien manipulation simply stopped working. In space, Commander Kyung-soo Lim gave the attack order to his strike teams. All units engage. Destroy every alien installation in the system. The assault teams emerged from hiding and attacked the monitoring stations with weapons that had been built, using the new quantum isolation principles. The aliens were caught completely by surprise as their supposedly invisible network of bases came under simultaneous attack from forces they had not detected. On Earth, the consortium delegation found themselves trapped in a world that had suddenly gone dark. Their communication systems could not reach their ships or their homeworlds. For the first time in 8 centuries, the Galactic Consortium had lost contact with humanity. Ambassador Hyejin Choi stood up in the darkened UN Assembly Hall and spoke the words that had been prepared for this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen of Earth, I regret to inform you that the integration ceremony has been cancelled. Humanity chooses to remain free." The alien representatives stared at her in shock and confusion. In their long experience, no species had ever voluntarily cut themselves off from galactic civilization. The idea was so unthinkable that they could not immediately comprehend what had happened. "You have made a terrible mistake," said the lead consortium representative through his translation device. "Without our guidance and protection, your species will not survive. You are destroying yourselves." 6 months after the severance, Dr. Hyunwoo Cho stood in his laboratory, looking at the impossible device his team had just completed. The new faster-than-light drive used principles that no human scientist had ever dreamed of before the quantum isolation network freed them from alien influence. Without the subtle restrictions that had been built into all their previous research, humans had made technological leaps that astounded even themselves. "The test results are incredible," reported his assistant as she reviewed the data from their latest experiment. "This drive system is not just faster than anything we built before severance. It appears to be more advanced than the FTL technology the consortium uses." Yunwoo nodded as he studied the sleek drive core that hummed with barely contained energy. "When we were no longer limited by their restrictions, our natural creativity exploded. We have made more progress in 6 months than we made in the previous 50 years. Around the world, similar breakthroughs were happening in every field of human research. Scientists who had been unknowingly constrained by alien manipulation discovered new approaches to physics, chemistry, and engineering that led to revolutionary advances. It was as if humanity had been trying to run a race while carrying heavy weights, and had only now realized they could set the burden down. Fleet Commander Yeon-Soo Nam reviewed the status reports from Earth's new industrial centers as she prepared for the mission that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. In the months since Severance, humans had built more spacecraft than in all their previous history combined. The ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything the consortium had expected Earth to produce. Admiral, the alien punishment fleet has been detected entering the outer system, reported her communications officer, Captain Ji-won Moon. 67 vessels of various classes led by what appears to be a battlecruiser of unknown design. How long until they reach Earth? Asked Yeon-Soo. At their current speed, approximately 18 hours. They seem to be taking their time, perhaps, hoping that we will surrender before they have to use force. Yeon-Soo smiled grimly as she looked at the tactical display showing her own fleet. 43 ships built with humanity's new unrestricted technology waited in formation around Earth. The consortium force outnumbered them, but that might not matter if human innovation had produced the advantages they hoped for. Signal all ships. We move to intercept in 6 hours. Today we find out if freedom is something humans can defend as well as declare. The Galactic Consortium had been stunned by humanity's actions during the Severance. In their thousands of years of experience, no species had ever successfully cut themselves off from the monitoring network. Most had never even discovered that they were being monitored. The idea that a young species could develop the technology needed to break free from galactic control seemed impossible. But what shocked them even more was the rapid advancement that humans had achieved in the months following their isolation. Consortium scientists had carefully calculated the maximum technological level that Earth should be able to reach without guidance. Humanity had already surpassed those projections and showed no signs of slowing down. The punishment fleet that approached Earth carried representatives from dozens of client species who served the consortium as soldiers and administrators. Many of them had forgotten that they had once been free peoples with their own dreams and ambitions. They saw humanity's rebellion as dangerous and foolish rather than inspiring. The human vessels are moving to intercept us, reported the fleet sensor officer to Consortium Admiral Thex 9. Their formation is unusual, and they appear to be using FTL drives based on principles we do not recognize. Impossible, replied Thex 9. Our calculations show that humans should not be capable of developing advanced FTL technology for at least another century. They must be using equipment provided by rogue elements within the consortium. Sir, our analysis suggests that the technology is entirely human in origin. The quantum signatures do not match any known consortium systems. Thex 9 studied the tactical display with growing unease. The consortium had ruled this region of space for millennia by carefully controlling the development of younger species. If humans had somehow broken free from those controls and were advancing on their own, then the implications were terrifying. Captain Ji-won Moon stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberation as the two fleets approached each other in the dark emptiness between Jupiter and Saturn. Her ship was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built, incorporating all the technological breakthroughs that had emerged since the Severance. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet, reported her communications officer. Put it through, ordered Ji-won. The voice that came through the speakers carried the authority of a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Human vessels, you are in violation of Galactic Consortium law and have committed acts of aggression against lawful monitoring installations. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated with appropriate mercy. Ji-won activated her own transmitter and spoke the words that had been prepared for this moment. Consortium Fleet, this is Captain Ji-won Moon of the Earth vessel Liberation. We reject your authority over humanity. We refuse your guidance. We deny your protection. We choose our own path among the stars. You are making a fatal mistake, human. Your species cannot survive without consortium oversight. The galaxy is full of dangers that you cannot imagine. Submit now, or face the consequences of your foolish pride. We would rather die free than live as slaves, replied Jiwan. If you want to enslave humanity, you will have to fight us for that privilege. The two fleets closed to weapons range, and for a moment space was quiet except for the background radiation of distant stars. Then the consortium fleet opened fire with weapons that could shatter planets, and the battle for humanity's freedom began. The Liberation and her sister ships moved with grace and speed that astonished their enemies. Human engineers had designed the new vessels to be fast and maneuverable rather than heavily armored. They darted between the alien ships like fighters, attacking bombers, striking with precision weapons, and then disappearing before the enemy could respond. Their ships are much faster than our projections indicated, reported the consortium tactical officer. They are using hit-and-run tactics that make it difficult for our heavy weapons to target them effectively. Admiral Thex 9 watched in growing alarm as several of his vessels took damage from human weapons that should not have been able to penetrate consortium shields. Analysis of human weapon systems. How are they achieving these results? Sir, their weapons appear to use focused quantum disruption rather than conventional energy projection. The technology is completely unknown to our databases. It bypasses our defensive systems by operating on quantum frequencies we do not monitor. The battle raged for hours as human ships danced around their larger and more heavily armed opponents. The Liberation led attack after attack against the consortium formation, using tactics that no galactic military manual had ever described. Captain Jiwan Moon commanded her fleet with instincts that had been honed by centuries of human conflict. Captain, the enemy flagship is moving to engage us directly, reported her tactical officer. Good, replied Jiwan. Signal all ships. Focus fire on the battlecruiser. If we can defeat their commander, the rest of their fleet might lose heart. The Liberation accelerated toward the massive consortium battlecruiser that bristled with weapons designed to destroy entire cities. It was a contest between human innovation and galactic tradition, between the creativity of a free species and the overwhelming power of an ancient empire. As the two ships closed to point-blank range, Jiwan activated her ship's most advanced system, the quantum disruption torpedo that her scientists had developed specifically for this battle. The weapon existed in a state of quantum superposition until the moment of impact, when it would choose the reality in which it inflicted maximum damage. The torpedo struck the consortium battlecruiser, and for an instant the massive alien vessel seemed to flicker between existing and not existing. Then reality collapsed into the outcome that favored the human weapon, and the battlecruiser's shields failed catastrophically. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, shouted the tactical officer. Their main systems are failing. They are requesting immediate assistance from the rest of their fleet. But the other consortium vessels were fighting desperately against human ships that attacked from impossible angles and disappeared before retaliation was possible. The alien commanders had trained for centuries to fight conventional battles against enemies who followed the established rules of galactic warfare. They had no experience dealing with opponents who made up new rules as the battle progressed. Admiral Thex 9 finally admitted what his pride had refused to accept. Signal general retreat. We cannot defeat this enemy with conventional tactics. The Consortium Council must be informed immediately. Sir, the humans are not pursuing, reported his sensor officer as the battered consortium fleet limped away from Earth. They appear to be returning to defensive positions around their home world. Thex 9 understood the message that humanity was sending. They would defend themselves, but they had no desire to become conquerors.